Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to watch today's video. Gonna have an info pack deal for y'all today because we're gonna be talking about some modifications and how to rig a fluke for May bass fishing. Now this is different. It's like when you're talking about fishing a fluke, every single month is different on how you need to modify it, rig it, the colors you use, the type of retrieve, the type of areas. So specifically, guys, I want to show you guys how I set up my flukes for May bass fishing and sort of explain to you the areas they work good in, colors, all, tackle to throw it with. It's just gonna pretty juicy video on the way here. Also, guys, before we get started, just a couple quick things. I'd like to invite everybody, if you haven't had a chance, to please consider hitting that subscribe button here at Intuitive Angling. Free and easy to do so. If you like the content of the channel, you want to support the channel, that's a free and easy way to do it. And also, guys, you can go to the next level if you want to become a channel member to support Intuitive Angling. Channel members get private videos every week that are not seen by the public and some access to my email address for your fishing questions. Just go to my YouTube homepage and you'll see a little thing that says join there. You can hit that or go into the channel description and get the info for that. Really appreciate it. Okay, everybody's favorite lure, man, fluke. Super fun to fish, been catching them forever. These soft plastic jerk baits they're a really unique category because they trigger strikes from a lot of different, reaction points from a fish. So, it triggers a feeding response, triggers a reaction response, triggers a competition response. You can fish them from top to bottom. They're super, super versatile, depending upon how you want to set it up. And different times of the year, like I said, there's different ways to fish it. But in today's video, I want to specifically target how to fish and rig these things up for the month of May and the mood and the personality of the bass during the month of May. Okay, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the bass and why we're going to make these modifications. And I'm going to show you how to modify the bait here. When you're talking about May bass fishing, you've got, for the most part in the country, depending upon where you're at, you've still got some bass that are still spawning a little bit. If you're up north, maybe they're just starting to spawn, but for the most people in the country, the spawn is winding down or it's over completely and the fish are in their post-spawn phase. Now, depending upon the time of the post-spawn, there can still be some bass garden fry. They could be still in shallow water. They can be on their way moving to deeper water. There's just a lot of stuff going on. But for the most part, I find that bass in May are still relatively shallow. And also they are feeding. It's like these bass have been exhausted from spawning. They're trying to replenish their, all the energy they've used up from spawning, male and female bass both. So it's a really good time of year to catch them on the fluke. So that's a little bit about the mood and the personality. Now, given the fact that these bass are shallow, that requires a different type of rigging and presentation on the fluke in terms of how to fish it versus if they're a little bit deeper. Also, there's going to be two different populations of bass in the month of May that you can catch on the fluke. There are going to be some fish that are really shallow, that like shallow around targets, around grass and, shallow rock or wood or whatever. And then there's going to be some bass that have moved into the second stage where they're maybe setting up on secondary points. They've moved out a little bit deeper, but not deep, less than 10 foot, but they're still a little deeper than some of those bass that are in the back of the coves. So we're going to talk about how to target both of them here. Okay, the first thing, let's talk about the rigging on this. The rigging is really critical depending upon the technique that you want to fish and how the fish are setting up. Now, there's two different ways that you want to rig this thing. One is with a straight shank. This is a Gamakatsu G-Finesse nano-coated hook. We're going to show you how to set this one up. And the second one is with a core tackle hover rig head, depending upon how we're going to fish it. I'm going to show you how to set both of these up. Now, first of all, let's talk about the primary way to fish it, where most people are going to fish it in and around shallow water cover. What you want to do is you want to take your fluke here, you want to take the straight shank hook, and we're going to come in the head and we're going to come out the bottom of the slit here. Now, most people, let me show you real quick how most people rig this up. So it's a little bit different. I'm going to sort of show you guys the mistake a lot of people make when they rig up a fluke here. If I can find an EWG hook to show you guys with. Oh, where's that sucker at here? The way that I'm going to show you guys here, this is going to give you so much better action on the bait Then if you rig it with an EWG style, god dang, I've got an EWG in here somewhere. Oh, here it is. Okay, this is how most people rig a Fluke, and this is the way I do not like to rig a Fluke. This is probably, in fact, I never rig a Fluke like this. They just take an EWG hook and they come, through the top like this, like that. Now, number one, guys, you're gonna lose a lot of bass on this. Now, if you fish around heavy cover, possibly, but the problem you have when the Fluke is rigged like this is it tends to pop out of the air, to pop out of the water. It's like you'll jerk it like that, and it tends to just want to surface. And also, like I said, it's a very poor rigging, as far as hooking the fish. And actually, I lost so many fish rigging it like this, it made me develop the technique I'm going to show you here as far as rigging. So take your straight shank hook here. Talked about this a little bit before in the past, and you want to start threading it through. And also, when you thread it through, guys, make sure you stay high, stay along the back here because it's hollow underneath it. So take your time and go right along just underneath that back, and you're going to want to go about probably halfway out the Fluke here. And see, you're going to come out, there's the slit, the hook's going to come straight out that slit. This makes all the difference in the world in the action on this thing. So you're coming out like this, where the hook's underneath the bottom like that. See the hook there? Number one, this is still pretty weedless, but number two, you have an exposed hook, and most importantly is you want to rig it where it's tilting down. See how the bait is tilting just a little bit? You want the butt sort of going in, so adjust your hook like that. And by having it where it's tilted down, it makes this thing dig underwater and dart down like that. It doesn't blow out on the surface. So this is how you want to rig it right here when those fish are really, really shallow. So say, for example, if you're back in a cove or something and you're just going down a bank, or you're throwing it around the edge of a boat dock or a grass bed or lay down tree or something, by rigging it like this with that hook out the bottom, the bait is pretty light and you don't have to twitch it as hard to get it to react and dart, and it's super, super slow falling, so it works really good in that shallow water. Now, the second way I rig it is on the core tackle hover rig head. So just the hover rig head, you can get them here. Also, guys, I'll link all this in the description. I'll link the core tackle hover rig head, all the baits and everything here. My tackle warehouse link, if you guys want to use that in the video description, you can get all this stuff. So anyway, come in about 1/4 of an inch behind the bait like that, and then you're going to thread it through the top. If you guys never rigged the hover rig, I'll show you how to do it. And then come through. You're gonna keep pushing it through all the way to it's like that. Now the next thing you want to do, guys, is you want to bury this point in this here. So just sort of pull it up and tuck it right back in there like that. So the thing about the hover rig head, guys, if you've never seen the hover rig head, it causes the bait to spiral down. It's like it spirals down like that as the bait falls. And when you jerk it like that, it just goes everywhere. This hover rig head is unbelievable on a Fluke. Once you start using a hover rig head on a Fluke, you hardly ever will use any other hook on it. So definitely get you some in that tackle warehouse link. So anyway, the hover rig, since it's weighted a little bit, this is going to be the way that you want to catch them when those fish have moved out to those secondary and main lake points. So for example, let's talk a little bit about here. Bass have spawned, they're done garden fry, water temperatures maybe are 75 degrees, and they've been back in the cove, like halfway to all the way back in the cove. And in May, after they spawn, they're going to swim out towards the main part of the creek or the main part of the lake, and they're going to set up on some of those main lake and secondary points. Now, when they're like that, you can take the hover rig set up there, get out on those secondary points, get your boat like in 15 to 20 foot of water, depending upon the water clarity, which we'll talk about here in a second, and just throw it out there and just work it like a jerk bait. Just throw it out there like that. Show you guys how I like to rig it. Well, I'll show you how I like to rig both of them, but on the hover rig, throw it out there like that, let it sink to, however deep you think the fish are, and then just start boom, 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 boom. Stop it, boom, 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 boom. Stop it, boom, boom, boom. Just like a jerk bait. So what this thing is going to do, when you jerk it, it's going to go just like that, and it's going to sink a little bit. Jerk it just like that, and it's going to sink. And by having this aggressive jerking motion like that on those open water points, that's going to draw those bass from a long way away to get this thing. This is going to work especially good in cleaner water. And we'll talk a little bit about the shallow part, but for the hover rig on the points, I like to have water visibility of at least 4 feet, because if you have 4 foot of visibility and that fluke is darting everywhere like that, it'll pull those fish out of deeper water or from a distance or even on top. And another reason that I like the hover rig setup there is a lot of times in the month of May, bass love to school on top, big time. If you get a day that the wind's not blowing much and it's cloudy and you have clear water, there's always usually schooling bass, especially if you have spotted bass in the lake out on those points. And you can take that hover rig that's got the weighted head on it and you can cast it a mile. Same thing, you see some schooling out there, make a long cast, boom, 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 boom. Great way to catch those schooling fish with that. Okay, now for the shallow fish, when you're using the straight shank Gamakatsu, you don't want to work it aggressive like that. You're trying to keep it in the strike zone longer because you're not trying to pull those fish into that fluke. With the hover rig out on the point, you're trying to draw them in from a long way, but when you're fishing it on the bank, you're specifically targeting ambush points. So say, for example, we're coming up and there's a stump in the water, a dock corner in the water, a little grass patch edge or something like that. You throw that fluke up there. Sometimes I'll just pitch it like that and I'm just twitching it slow just like that, real slow. And since there's no weight on it, the thing falls really slow. So I'll twitch it slow like that and let it sink. And so it's going, it's just going like this. Sideways, 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 slow sinking. And you're gonna stay in the strike zone longer. So that's the way I like to rig it for super shallow water. Another thing on a fluke, guys, is your rod action is critical. In order to get the right action, it's almost like a jerkbait rod. So the rod that I use, this is the Megabass P5 110 Special, 6 foot 11 inches long, sort of a medium action rod. So that 6 foot 11 and that medium action gives you a really good way to get that cadence in the bait going on. So I'll also link that in the description of the video, that P5 Destroyer. That's a great fluke rod, and you can also use it as a jerkbait rod. Okay, let's talk, I got one more thing I forgot to show you, then I'll talk a little bit about what to look for. I'll show you one other modification I like to make on all the flukes before I do it. Get you a chartreuse marking pen, and you want to draw on any fluke that you're using. I never do it without this. I'll take this chartreuse pen and I'll show you what it looks like before and after, and draw a chartreuse line right down the breaking point of the fluke here. Get that up there. I'll show you what it looks like, you know, when you don't have it versus do. And then take a little bit and put a little puff on the tail there. Not much, don't put a lot on the tail, just a little bit. And here's the difference of how the two look here. That's with the chartreuse and that's without it. Let's straighten the tail out there. See the difference on there? You got the little chartreuse on the tail. A lot of times in that clear water, guys, that'll make all the difference. Just that little chartreuse, bass really seem to like that. And on the tail, just a little bit of a strike attractor there. Okay, now as far as let's talk a little bit more about the water visibilities. Flukes come in a lot of different colors. So anytime that you're using, you're fishing some, really off-colored water with that fluke, try to go to the pearls or the brighter colors. Other than that, just mix it up and see what they prefer. Some type of a more natural shady pattern, more of a translucent pattern works good. If you're fishing tannic water, like in Florida or any water that has grass, a green pumpkin or watermelon works really good. Main thing about it is I really pay close attention to the water clarity in terms of color and how I work the bait. Now, if you're fishing back in those shallower coves where you think those fish are just coming off the beds, you can catch them in pretty dirty water. Don't let dirty water keep you from fishing a fluke. If you have water visibility that's like 12 inches, which is dirty water, especially for a soft plastic jerkbait, you can take a pearl fluke and you can fish it really slow around shallow cover, and those bass will hammer it. I remember how I first saw this. I was fishing a tournament at Lake Dardanelle in Arkansas. And Lake Dardanelle is a pretty dirty lake. It had about a foot of visibility where we were fishing. And I was fishing a square bill crankbait down the side of isolated logs and catching a few, but I was having a tough time. My co-angler pulled out a pearl-colored fluke and started throwing that fluke around those lay-down trees and the logs in the water, and he kicked my butt on that fluke in that dirty water. And ever since then, I've used it in dirty water, pretty successfully. But for the most part, in general, a fluke is a sight bait, so it works better in a little bit cleaner water, even if that water is back shallow. So I like to have, if I'm fishing the fluke shallow, like in those spawning areas, I want to have like at least 2 foot of visibility. Seems like it's always better, and you don't have to have the right type of sky conditions, because if you're fishing in that more off-colored water shallow, it's more about shade and cover. You can catch them on a bright sunny day with a lot of different colors if you have shade pockets, like shade off of docks or shade underneath the overhanging tree. So if you're fishing shallow with those flukes, I've caught them on rainy days, clear days, windy days, calm days. But if you're fishing out on those points, like with the scrounger head on it, you definitely want those calmer, low light days. The best time to fish the points with a fluke is if you got, again, water visibility over 4 foot, you got some pretty calm conditions and some low light conditions. So perfect scenario in May would be 4 foot of visibility, cloudy day, 5 mile an hour wind or less. And that's gonna really, really get those fish aggressive out in that more open water. Anytime that you have open water fish, like on points versus like fish that are structure oriented on the bank around, cover that's on the bank, the light intensity is a lot more important on those open water fish. You always want a lower light intensity day with that. Anyway, guys, that's just a few good tips with the fluke there. Like I said, you can, those are just 2 ways, really good ways that I've caught them on. I've caught them on it both on there. It just depends on the conditions and how your lake's laid out, but it's a remarkable fish catcher. And one more piece of advice I'll give you with the fluke, guys, is you will miss a lot of fish on a fluke, because a fluke is sort of like a hybrid hybrid swim bait, glide bait. So you have a lot of fish look at it and not hit it. When you do get a fish to hit a fluke, resist the urge to set the hook right off the bat. If you're working that fluke and you feel one hit it, let the fish swim with it for just a little bit. And if you can just let them move for 3 or 4 feet with it, you're going to land a lot more. So anyway, hope it helps you guys out. We'll talk later.